If you don't know me and you're just finding this by chance, or I've sent this to you and you've never been in my kitchen, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Jo. I have been baking with natural yeast, I want to say about 8 years now. And I've been doing lessons with friends and neighbors and strangers for about 7 of those years. And the reason why I started doing lessons is because this bread has been one of the, I shouldn't say one of, it's literally the only item made with flour, wheat flour, that my body tolerates. And I know, everyone's gluten intolerant, right? Everyone's gluten-free. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people get to a point where they notice, maybe after Domino's pizza or a big muffin from Costco or a cake at a friend's house, they get the big food belly or food baby. And a lot of that is because everyone is gluten intolerant on some level. Your body's reaction is an inflammatory response. And where that level is, where it's tolerant or intolerant, is different for every person. And for me, over the years, it has become just a smaller and smaller area of leeway. I feel better without it. Again, except for when the wheat, the flour, goes through the process, that is done through natural yeast, the breaking down process. So what happens is that gluten protein gets broken down by natural yeast. What is natural yeast? It is not the natural yeast or natural yeast flakes I've been seeing in grocery stores over the last 2 years. Natural yeast is something that you use as a leavening agent, and it has been used for thousands of years. So around World War II, there was a need for bread to be made quicker than a 24-hour turnaround. And quick yeast, or quick active yeast, was invented. With that invention, there's been also a huge rise in GMO, genetically modified use of, or genetic modifications of wheat. And I just feel like the less modification that I've had to the wheat that I purchase, that I buy, and then using the natural yeast, I'm able to make bread and eat it without having a reaction. I'm able to make homemade pizza and eat it and enjoy it and not have a reaction. I make pitas. I also make crepes. What else do I make? I make a lot of stuff with this basic bread dough that I'm going to teach you today. So how do you get natural yeast? Well, a lot of times I send it in the mail in a dehydrated form. Foam. I don't know where that word came from. So this is a bag, just maybe about 3/4 of a cup of dehydrated natural yeast. So this is something I can send in the mail or just keep in my fridge. It's something that lasts a long time. I've got a friend who's had a package like this in her fridge for the last 5 years. She can still pull it out, make a jar. I have on my food blog instructions on how to rehydrate yeast flakes. So if you're interested in that, I'll see how tech savvy I can get with this. I'm not tech savvy. I'm not cute and fun. No makeup, hair in a braid. You're in my kitchen. You're just hanging out with me at home. This is how I roll. This is it. And then my techness, I'll see what I can do. If I don't get it up, my blog spot is, what is my blog spot? Mama Jo's, MAMAJOS, Kitchen Eats yeast.blogspot.com. I got all my uses for this natural yeast. And then again, how to rehydrate the natural yeast. If it's something that I end up sending to you, go there for instructions. Before you get to this point, you have to have a jar of active yeast. So this is a living organism. You can see it here. You can see all the dots or air bubbles in there. That is a happy, active jar of yeast. At this point, it's ready to use. So we're gonna make some bread. This basic bread calls for anywhere from 3 to 4 cups of flour. So just know that depending on the area where you live, the time of year, it's a variable. I've got a 1/2 cup scoop here. So I'm gonna need 6 of these. I'm not leveling it off. I'm not packing it in either. And I can't count and talk at the same time. So there we go, 6. And it's probably a little on the lesser side of what I'll need, which will be a good thing because I want to show you it not at a ready point. I want to show it to you sticky so that you know when you need to add more flour. 1 teaspoon salt. I like sea salt. If you use pink Himalayan salt, I recommend that you use just a little less than 1 teaspoon. It's a little bit stronger flavor, but just figure out what you like. And that's probably one of the things that I love about this bread, and I talk a lot about, is you get to decide what your preference is. Maybe you don't like honey. I'm a sugar addict. I love the honey. This is a sourdough. Literally, it's a sourdough. So if you like it more sour, then don't put in the honey. I just put in 1.5 cups water. So this is a water measuring cup. 1.5 cups of water. I'm gonna add some honey. I like a lot of honey. So I recommend 2 tablespoons to 1/4 cup. It's about a 1/4 cup. And the natural yeast. That's it. 5 ingredients. No eggs, no milk, no butter. And then we leave it until we bake tomorrow. So it really doesn't take much time. I've been talking, I think I talked for a good 5 minutes before I even started. I'm not even at 3 minutes, and I'm going slow. And I'm talking while I'm doing it. It's a really fast prep. We're gonna set this aside. This is our jar of natural yeast because we need to feed and water it. When you have a living organism, you need 3 things for survival: food, water, air. We're going to talk about those 3 things when we get to taking care of this after our dough is mixed. So I put in about a 1/2 cup of starter. I really only needed maybe a 1/4 cup to a 1/3 of a cup, but I'm talking and I'm lazy and it's fine. Again, one of those things, I'm not going to sit here and measure out and go back and forth and try to make things perfect, because I can, if I've got too much flour, I can go in and add a little bit of water. If I have too much water, I can go in and add a little flour. In either case, the ingredients, there's variables. You can see what you like, what you don't like with the honey. My mom likes to mix as much flour as she can possibly get in to her dough, whereas I don't. A lot of times, unless I need a little extra dough, say I'm making a breakfast loaf with cooked eggs and sausage and cheese or something like that, or I'm making cinnamon rolls or orange rolls and I want maybe a little extra dough, I'll take an extra 5 minutes, work in more flour, make sure I have, you know, a bigger portion of natural yeast, and then I'll end up having a little bit more dough. Great. If that's what I want, great. Do I need to sit here and mix and mix and mix until I get every single ounce of flour in that I possibly can? No. No. And actually, we're gonna, even though this, if I weren't making a video trying to show you what not to do, or just kind of those variables that we just talked about, I would honestly be done with this. I can poke it, come out, and I don't have the whole thing. If I poke this and I get like half of the dough still on my wooden spoon or dough hook, which is what this is, then I would add more flour. It is a little sticky, so I'll add a little bit of flour, but at this point, my dough is done until tomorrow. There's no kneading. It's just done until we cook. I don't know what else to say about it. If you've ever made bread before, you know that that's a big deal, because a lot of times, not all, a lot of times, all the time, every time you cook with quick yeast, you have to come back. You are stuck at home. You have to come back to your bread, your dough, every couple hours and knead it and add flour, knead it again, let it rise. It's a whole day of being stuck in your kitchen, babysitting, taking care of, not with us. So not only has this bread been better for my gut, but it's easier. Some added extra bonus as I use my hand to do this. Again, this is actually not typical. I usually just mix it and I'm done. So I added maybe about 1/3 of a cup more flour. You can see it's more, I don't know, it's less sticky for sure. Definitely more of a ball, but done. What we'll do, excuse me while I leave the camera. I thought I got everything out that I needed, and I forgot this. So this is just plastic wrap. I'm gonna take some plastic wrap and wrap this. You can use some old-fashioned kind of beeswax. I prefer the plastic wrap. I live in Houston and there's flies. I don't know, I just like the plastic wrap. I prefer it. I've used the beeswax. I feel like this gets, plus I want to see what's going on. Maybe that's what it is. I'm a visual learner. I'm a very visual person, so maybe it's because I like watching the dough develop and progress throughout the day, so I can see what's going on without having to peek. But that's it. Get the plastic wrap tight. I'm gonna set this aside until tomorrow. Maybe I'll get one of my kids to help me make a video of baking, how I bake now, because my old video is probably, I think it's 3 or 4 years old. I bake a little bit differently, similar, but just a little bit differently. So we'll see what we can do. Or I won't do anything at all, we'll see. All right, so we are to the point of taking care of our natural yeast. Taking care of it because, again, it is a living organism. We want to give it some food, which is the flour, and some water, mix it up, and when we put the lid on, we want to make sure that there's enough air getting in that it's not suffocating. Some clue as to if your natural yeast is struggling is if you end up with a huge amount of wastewater at the top. That might be an indicator that it's struggling to survive. Some wastewater is typical and you should expect that. I dump mine off, or you can put it in your bread and make it more sour. That's your choice. But a ridiculous amount of water and no activity, none of those air bubbles, that's an indicator that your lid is on too tight. So I've added water I've added a little flour. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. The consistency that I want to see is like oatmeal. So as I mix this up, I'm trying to incorporate a lot of air bubbles to the bottom, all the way through. Again, going back to those three things: water, food, and air. So now that I've got this mixed up, I'm gonna put the lid on. As I put the lid on, I'm gonna put it all the way on and then come off. I want it to be loose. I want air circulating. Then when I put it in my refrigerator, I almost said fridge. Refrigerator, fridge, same thing. When I put it in, I want to make sure that I'm not glass to glass. That makes it really cold, and again, causes a struggle. So give your yeast a little bit of warmth just by putting a cloth between the glass and glass if your refrigerator has a glass shelf. Last thing, if you have a regular jar like this, you've got two options for a lid. So this lid and jar, this is just an old jam jar from Costco. I can't remember the name, but it's like a French jam. I love these jars because my hands are little. It's easy for me to grip. This is about a medium-sized jar. I can keep a sizable amount of yeast going. This is a bigger jar, a little harder for my hand to hold, but this quart-sized jar comes with lids like this. What you want to do with a lid like this is flip that rubber seal so that it's facing up. The reason why is because we don't want airtight. So when you put the jar and lid together and you come back off of it, come back off. Remember, we're gonna turn it on or turn it all the way around and then come back a quarter turn. The reason why we don't want the lid facing down normally, like it normally would, is because even when we come back on that quarter turn, it still gets that air tightness that we don't want. Your other option, instead of this kind of lid, is just buying some lids like this. They're called leak proof. Same company. When you turn it on or turn it all the way around, come back off. Come back off just a bit so that it's loose. You can hear it, you can feel it. Just giving some air circulation. So those are your two lid options for a canning jar. And I think that's it. Oh, one more thing. So I know that I said at the beginning that there's a particular flour that I like. My favorite is one that I find at Costco. It's called, or it's just their organic all-purpose flour. Easily found at a grocery store. Organic, unbleached, great. That's the best. A better choice, or not a better choice, let me back up. It's good that you're making your own bread. If you just have regular flour, all-purpose flour, good. It's better to have unbleached flour. It's best to have organic, unbleached flour. That's just my opinion. That's how I've noticed my body does best in the things that I tolerate and how I feel. And just go back to the awesomeness that you're making your own bread. How cool is that? Go to my blog, see what else you can do with this bread dough. This is the basic bread dough. It's the base of making a kolache bread, like a breakfast bread with cooked meat, eggs and cheese if you like that. Or you can put other things in it, like cranberries and orange zest and orange juice. I've done flaxseed. I love the flaxseed. I have friends who do the bagel all season on top of their bread and bake it that way. Experiment with it, have fun with it, try new things, try some pizzas, try some pitas. doing pitas, using this bread dough and cooking it up in a cast iron. Have fun. Enjoy. Bye, guys.